happy Thursday on this extremely warm Thursday. Driving north on Mopac, and my thermometer is at 100 degrees. Something else that's being heated up is the migrant crisis. Seems like everybody want to criticize Texas for doing what it's doing, but yet they don't have a plan themselves. I don't know what other states expect Texas to do. We can't be the only one. Border towns can't be the only towns being overran by migrants. But it looks like Mayor Adams is blasting his own governor. That's right. This is from the New York Post. Kathy Hochul blasted for New York migrant crisis response. There has been zero leaderships. Albany Governor Kathy Hochul claims that she's leading New York through a migrant crisis, while leaving it to Mayor Eric Adams to decide where asylum seekers should go upstate, despite fierce resistance from some local population or polls. I'm leading the way that the governor is supposed to lead. That is to survey all the land available, and I have control over sunny campuses, psychiatric centers, former prisons, and make that available to the mayor, Hochul told reporters in Albany on Tuesday. But is that the case? Adam would make the decision about whether to use such sites, Hochul said Buffalo the day before, despite her power to pressure the city to send migrants where they would be relatively welcome rather than resisted. Her ongoing deference to Adams is just one example of a passive approach at times of a growing issue fueling conflict between New York City and local governments. But where to put the hundreds? Really? Hundreds? Hundreds? Dude, that's like 3 hours on the border. Where to put hundreds of migrants pouring into the city each day. Leading would suggest that there have been some sort of semblance of preparation, coordination, and proactive. Assembly Minority Leader William Barkley, Republican Putin, railed on Wednesday. Her administration backtracked last month from talk of challenging the authority of Rockland and Orange counties to block migrants from arriving after New York Civil Liberties Union took legal action. I'm sure we'll be announcing the results of that very shortly, Hochul said on May 10th before dropping the idea. Other actions that Hochul has taken is like declaring a state of emergency last month, pushing for legislature to approve $1 billion in funding for the city, only happened after she faced insistent criticism. She may not be governor in a couple of years, the way she's acting right now. Hochul has mobilized 1,600 members of the National Guard since last year and made state-controlled facilities like the former Lincoln Correctional Facility in Manhattan, JFK Airport in Queens, available to house migrants while maintaining pressure on the feds to provide more resources. You should be pressuring the Fed to close the stupid border. Put policies in place like Remain in Mexico. Her administration also embedded some staff within the city to soothe communication on the crisis. Her ultimate plan for resolving the crisis depends on President Joe Biden's administration to somehow solving the problem by providing more money. Just give us more money. That's all we want. Want more money. Give us the money. Seems like throwing money at problems doesn't really help. Fast-tracking work authorization for migrants and permission to use federal sites to house migrants despite the possibility such help will not arrive anytime soon. We need help, we need resources, we need federal facilities, Hochul said on Wednesday, following a Friday meeting in Washington, D.C., the White House official with Biden on the phone. We're saying, give them work status. I'll change the whole dynamic around them, she added. But Hochul faced criticism by relying too much on local officials during the crisis, like historic Buffalo blizzard that left more than 40 people dead in December. I think 20 people died here in Texas a few years back, and Texas still hasn't been able to let that go. Every time we mention Texas, they mention the only time the power grid almost failed here in Texas, while we have multiple brownouts in New York, multiple power outages out in California, but yet somehow Texas needs to fix our grid because it almost failed one time. I don't know, that's a sore subject for me. The approach of the crisis management contrasts with the style of ex-governor Andrew Cuomo, who demonstrated that the far-reaching potential of gubernatorial power absent federal action during his 3 terms in office. Well, I didn't realize he was a 3-term governor. Before resigning in disgrace in 2021, and part of his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic as the assembly prepared to impeach him. They weren't impeaching him over his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic unless the news I get here in Texas is different, that they're going to impeach him over sexual allegations. Unless I'm misremembering that. It could be the nursing home debacle. Tensions between local governments and local New York, meanwhile, grew on Wednesday as Rockland launched a fresh legal challenges against Adams' administration, which is suing more than 24 other counties to unlock space for migrants upstate. Obviously, it's difficult and toxic issue with no great easy solution, a Democratic political consultant told the Post while representing a nominality to speak frankly. But before she should be taking more of a leadership role and stop effing over the suburbs and figure out a statewide solution. I mean, just house them in tents. I'm being serious. I was in a tent when I was in Iraq. Forget what the camp was called. It was either I want to say Camp Home, but it was renamed Liberty. But there was a section of that camp where they had military tents that was AC and had cots in them. If you need a temporary solution that is available to you, the National Guard can set up those tents in a heartbeat, and you'll be able to house several thousand migrants. You're talking about hundreds. I don't know if it's 500, 600, 800. We know about 20 tents, 30 tents. You could house a lot of people within them. Roughly 2,200 asylum seekers, mainly escaping poverty and violence in their home countries like Venezuela, arrived in the 5 boroughs within last week, out of more than 76,200 who have come since last year. And that's still a fraction of what Texas is seeing on the border. The city is currently providing shelter and other basic necessities to nearly 50,000 of them. Just 1% of them are currently outside the city limits, according to Adams' administration. While we're working hard to find sites within the city, we believe other counties and cities must also do their part. This is just not a New York City humanitarian crisis, rather a national crisis. Adolph Karen Jr., Commissioner of the City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, said at a Wednesday press conference at City Hall. And the Adams spokesperson did not provide comment on Wednesday on whether or not any migrants might get sent to state facilities upstate. Republicans have leveraged the outstanding uncertainty of where and when the migrants might get sent to, attacked immigrant-friendly policies at local and state and federal levels, such as the New York City status as a sanctuary city, while casting Hochul as a missing in action. Leadership will be leveraging your position as governor on the state of New York to get more federal resources. Leadership would be telling the mayor that he just can't ship migrants upstate in communities that aren't prepared and don't have the resources. You know, what else that doesn't have resources or aren't prepared? Which is our border towns. That includes Texas, that includes New Mexico, Arizona, California. So it's Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. I think I might be missing a state. They don't have the resources. They don't have the preparation time. And let's see here. Leadership would be addressing the so-called sanctuary status that have helped cause this crisis. State Senate Minority Leader Robert Ort, Republican Lockport, said. But none of that has happened. There's been zero leadership on any level, except for Mayor Adams. He's been getting the brunt of it. He actually might win second election because of the migrant crisis, because he's stepped up. Whether or not I agree with how he's stepping up is totally irrelevant. And the fact that I can't vote in the city of New York is I'm not a member, I'm not a citizen of New York. Take migrants and add crime and fear of crime, add bail reform and clean slate, finish with the suburban rezoning, and you come up with today with 2024 Democrats of suburban disaster. Why should she stick her neck out of her pantry, self-created noose? Democratic political consultant Hank Sherikoff said. I mean, you got a Democratic political consultant talking some smack. Let's hear Adams' handle on the crisis have attracted criticisms as well, including from local polls, miffed at his practice of sending migrants with little to no notice to counties outside its limits. It starts with the border towns. I know Texas is shipping a bulk of our migrants to these cities unannounced, but guess what? Migrants come to Texas unannounced. Any Democrat declaring leadership in the migrant crisis is lying to themselves and the public. Barclay said between Governor Hochul and Eric Adams, New York has been in a panic reaction mode for months with no end in sight because Texas keeps on sending them, the federal government keeps on sending them. I don't know if Arizona is sending them or if New Mexico is sending them. But the thing is, the southern border is being overran. They don't have the resources. Biden isn't giving the state of Texas resources to help with the migrant crisis. Sure hell is not giving El Paso resources that they promise to say nice things about them. Let's see here. City Council member Robert Holden, Democrat Queens, argued that the situation might have turned out better had Hochul taken a more proactive approach in the crisis soon after the migrants began arriving in the city last year, after being sent by border states like Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Now, keep in mind, I don't like the fact that my Texas state taxes are going towards shipping out migrants, but I understand this is the only play that Governor Abbott has. I don't know if declaring an invasion will give him any more leeway to address the issue. Ultimately, we are relying on a federal government that wants to ignore this issue, like I ignore my mental issues. But unlike my mental issues, this issue isn't going away in time. This is only going to get worse. It's going to be compounded. And pretty soon, either Texas is going to flip blue and Texas will be overran, or the federal government's going to step in and file a lawsuit against Texas to force them to keep migrants here. Or we get a new president that's going to close the border, put in policies that have remained in Mexico to help not really shut down, but reduce the flow of immigrants flooding our border towns. Hochul could have provided funding earlier and in bigger numbers, according to Holden, while also taking a more active role in finding places across the state and alleviate pressures on the city. It just doesn't seem to us like she has that hands-on, Holden said. To give credit where credit is due, I think Mayor Adams is doing the best job that he can. He says that we'll make things happen. We won't just turn away people. We'll make sure it's helping. And Kumo did the same thing under COVID. He took charge. He was a leader within the COVID years before he was ultimately forced to resign. I can recognize leadership potential and leadership achievements, even though I just don't like the Democratic Party all in general. But at least I am willing to give them credit that they are leaders in their own right, while Hochul seems to be extremely hands off and hope that this issue would go away. Let's see here. I'll read some of the comments. Let's see. The magnitude 7. Let's see here. Magnitude 7 earthquake within the major metropolitan area caused a crisis. This inflow is readily made customers for the government spending programs join Rambo. I don't know what that means. There wasn't a earthquake here in the United States. Please don't bother Albany with this minor problem like this. They need to focus on handling out a stadium contract and degendering bathrooms. Any attempt to cancel the Second and attempting to cancel the Second Amendment. New York State should be giving money that belongs to everyone to New York State, to the one city in the state who decided to be a sanctuary city and take every single illegal alien that walks across the border. You're part of the problem, and after the government steals the money from your neighbor, you're eager to claim it for yourself. Well, that's the thing is, I want the money back that I'm paying in taxes. Not a dime more, not a dime less. The Dems wanted to open the borders, sanctuary cities, etc. How dare they call what they wanted a crisis? The real crisis would have been running out of material to complete the wall. Complete the wall. The wall was going to be the most beautiful wall ever, and Mexico was going to pay for it. I'm not going to tell you how Mexico's going to pay for it, but they're going to pay for it. I said it. That's my crappy Donald Trump impression. What do people in New York City and New York expect? You voted Democrat, this is what you get. Just keep on complaining when the election day comes and around, and the people in New York will just vote Democrats again. Many more than once, even non-breathing folks. Let's see, don't blame me, I voted for Lee. Zeldin would have had the right to ship in Albany. Hochul will not engage in the real issues impacting our great state of New York. It's sad to watch New York diminishing in its stature. Wake up, New York. It's bad. And it's hip hop. Oh. So apparently, Governor Abbott right now is getting praised, but how he's managing the migrant crisis at the border by shipping off our issues onto other states. And I do agree with a few of the people here saying it's a national issue, which I do think. I think it's a national issue. And I don't think the border states, border towns, should be the one to bear the full brunt of the migrant crisis that's affecting the United States. We shouldn't be paying financially for it. This should be coming from the federal government. If we could send Ukraine billions of dollars, I think it's up to $2 billion, maybe up to $3 billion now, to Ukraine that we may not get back, we have enough money to at least fund states in order to house migrants that want to come to the United States, whether or not they're illegal or not illegal, whether or not they meet the criteria of asylum seeker. I think we should be funding our border, making sure that they're housed respectfully and have dignity while doing it. And I think that money should come from the federal government and not from the states. With that being said, that is my video for today, and have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.